Wah, wah, I'm your sister and I'm crying because this is Crysis Remastered. Barf, barf, barf. Hey everyone, welcome to Respawn Aim Fire, the kick-ass irreverent gaming podcast brought to you by out of the. That's it. I started with that brilliant crying sister thing, and then I fucked it up at the end when I said Affable Idiots. This is our
okay.
barf.
See, I was gonna ask, why did you start with that bit of any bit? Because she's crying.
Sister. Crysis. Yeah. This is our BARF episode, which is once a month. We have a backlog accomplishments with Respawn and friends where we talk about a specific game that you all want us to play from our backlogs, or something that's just a classic that maybe we need to revisit, or just a game that Cozy wants to. What's the ties one? Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Maybe it's just Cozy wants us to play Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and you all fell for the joke, and we all paid the price.
That's me plumbing the toilet in the titular Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
This plumbing the toilet is the same as us milking, is the same as jerking off, is the same. It's all the same. Who knew? This month, the month of March 2025, you all voted for us to play 4 games equally. And since we can't do 4 games in 1 month, I made the executive decision for us to play Crysis from that 4-game list because it was the most accessible, being on Game Pass, etc. Who am I? I'm Chad. Michael chose the game this month, and we've got our regular co-host. You've already heard this one, Alex. He's the one who chose the Plumbers Don't Wear Tie game, Cozina.
I have good news and a little bit of bad news. The good news is you might recall that last week, RFK Jr. and his goons stormed Canada and stole all of our poppers. The good news is that they went and returned all the poppers because the Canadian government deemed their seizure illegal. And so I have my poppers ready to go, but because I have a trip to Japan coming up in a couple of days, I'm actually trying to keep off the calories, and so I will not be partaking in it tonight. But it is here. Watch and guard.
You need some Popper Zero, baby. By the way, people listening might be like, why do you all do that to poor Cozy? Why do you all? It must be so hard for him to concentrate while every time that he starts to talk, you all open up a soda. And I would like to invite you to see it from the other side of things. Do you know how hard it is for me to sit here with a cold can of Sunkissed Orange Zero Sugar for the last 26 minutes and not open it and drink it?
Just
it is now
Nobody
slightly less than cold. It is chilled. It is no longer cold. It's wet and sweaty on the outside. My hands are moist. I just did this with my hands and I got water sprinkled on my bicep. Think about how hard it is for me. You're welcome, everyone, for the entertainment. That other hot top cracking motherfucker is Adam. Pop the top of that can. Gumbert, how are you, Adam?
Hey, I'm good. I've already popped my top. I can't unpop it now. It's done and over with.
And finally, Popper Daddy himself, Joel Campos, with us. Joel, welcome.
Yeah, they do call me the Popper Daddy, but not for the reason you might think. Tune into After Dark to find out.
Whoa, speaking of, if you're listening right now live, we are not doing a regular monthly episode or weekly episode tonight. We are just doing BARF. That's going to be your weekly episode this week. And then we're also offline recording After Dark 3, which is our special Patreon exclusive episode for the month. Patreon.com/RespawnAimFire is where you can go to get 30 days early access to that. Right now, you get After Dark 2, which is all about Joel. How many weddings is too many weddings? And poppers, the topic that just keeps on giving. This one, we have something that we haven't told some people about on this that we are excited for it to be a surprise. You'll have to find out. Patreon.com/RespawnAimFire on the 1st of April. It's not an April Fool's joke. It's just good listening. But about today, Crysis is what brings us together, along with marriage. Crysis is the game that we chose. It is a first-person shooter game released in 2007 on November 13th in the North American region, in 2007 November 15th in the Australian region, and November 16th 2007 in the European region. So it's okay. It's a little bit spaced apart. Anyway, this is a game that came out way back in 2007. It got many sequels. It got a remastered version that came out in 2020, and is currently has a 4th installment in development. There's a Crysis 4 in development as of 2022. It's developed by Crytek, which is a video game developer that you might recognize some of their things. For instance, the very first Far Cry was developed by Crytek. The VR game, Robinson the Journey, which is one of my favorite experiences on PSVR 1, where you're climbing around some shit and then there's dinosaurs and you have to like hide from velociraptors and it's terrifying. As well as the Crysis games, as well as, oh, there was something else in here notable that they had done recently.
RYS.
Rise, Son of Rome.
Rise,
That's
Son of
right. The
Rome.
Xbox One launch title. Xbox One or yeah, 3? It was one. Xbox One launch
Xbox
title.
One, yeah.
It's a 1, yeah.
So yeah, Crytek, they've been around for a while, since the original Far Cry. Crysis was their 2nd game. It is a game where you play as a gentleman named Nomad, running around.
Sorry, Chad.
Yeah?
I know you have much that you want to talk about. Before we get into the specifics of what Crysis is about, can I wax for a minute about the history of Crysis and how it came to be?
Oh, tell me all about it, dude. Tell me.
Okay, so the reason why I know a lot about this and why I was kind of excited to replay through this game is because back in 2018, I was writing for a YouTube channel called Gamers, spelt with a V, so GVMERS, but the V was stylized, flipped upside down 180 degrees, so it looked like an A. So you would pronounce
Kind of
it
like that
as
sex cult
Gamers.
Nexium.
Pretty much. And, you know, with the Gamers videos, sometimes I wouldn't necessarily play through all the games that were discussed in their videos. But in the case of Crysis, I actually made a point of playing through all the games in the franchise, including the expansion for Crysis 1, Crysis Warhead, which I believe to this day is only available on PC. And so going into this episode, I preemptively, you guys like to joke about how I always have hundreds of pages of notes. I had hundreds of pages of notes before I even wrote them because of me having worked on this video in the past. So yeah, story of Crysis 1 begins in the late 90s. Savat Yurli, who was an avid lover of games from Coburg, Germany, banded together with his friends to found a studio by the name of Crytek in 1999. That year, they took a trip down to the United States of A to go to E3, and they convinced NVIDIA, little known company, not sure if you've heard of them before, to let them showcase a demo that they had developed. And that demo was called Exile, like letter X and then Isle, Dinosaur Island. And it was basically just a glorified in-engine cutscene that showed a vast tropical island with roaming dinosaurs and lots of foliage, lots of tall grass, trees, things like that. Demo went over really well. NVIDIA signed a deal with Crytek to ship Exile, the demo, as a benchmarking software on its newly introduced GeForce graphics cards the following year. From that point on, Crytek's like, all right, great, let's start making games proper. They first wanted to work on a game called Ingalis, which was going to be a cyberpunk first-person shooter with role-playing elements. One of the former people that worked on it described it as being kind of like Half-Life meets Metal Gear Solid. Adam, I know that latter part really excites you. Was shown behind doors at E3 2000, but ultimately got canceled because it was just a little bit too ambitious for the studio at that point in their time and their overall lack of experience. However, their work on Ingalis scored them a deal with Ubisoft to develop, as Chad already went into, the original Far Cry. It was the first game to use Crytek's proprietary CryEngine, released in 2004. Real quick, has anybody here played the first Far Cry?
A long,
Yes.
long time ago.
I have never played it myself. What I've heard about it is that, like, especially by the standards of like the more recent Far Cry games, it's a little on the wonky side, but it's a game that like reviewed well, sold well enough. You know, it's worth pointing out 2004. This is the same year that games like Doom 3 and Half-Life 2 released. It was a big year for shooters, and like it's commendable that Far Cry kind of managed to hold its own in a year figure with such sort of big giants surrounding it. And so after Far Cry 1, Crytek's like, all right, we want to prove ourselves with a second outing that expands upon everything we did right with the original Far Cry, but in a little bit of a different coat of paint. They didn't want to do a direct sequel because they were like, we don't want to be pigeonholed into being the Far Cry studio. So handed the series license off to Ubisoft and began working on. The problem is that because all their games include Cry in the title, I constantly get them all confused. Put aside Far Cry to work on Crysis, the origin of how kind of Crysis first came about is basically Savet Yurli, the founder of the studio, basically put out a design exercise. He asked the design team to basically reimagine the kind of jungle landscape of Far Cry, but frozen over, covered in ice. And basically that blossomed from there into, well, if this tropical island was frozen over with ice, why would it be frozen? In what ways would this impact
Because
the
Elsa
gameplay?
got emotional and couldn't control her powers.
Maybe, who knows? And of course, in the process of doing so, they teamed up with EA, which of course would go on to publish the rest of the Crysis series. And of course, this game was first shown off in March of 2006. It's a game that, prior to its release, attracted a considerable amount of attention for it being this incredibly graphics and physics impressive game featuring things like realistic ambient lighting, volumetric clouds, things like that, which just made those PC gamers just super duper dripping wet with poppers. But, it did also result in, some things that in a roundabout way would go back to hurt Crytek a little bit. We're all here familiar with the "Can it run Crysis" meme, I'd imagine, which back in the day was
I
this
was
big meme
not
of, like,
familiar with the meme. I was familiar with the fact that Crysis was a benchmark game, but I was not familiar with the meme until about an hour ago.
right. So back in the day, whenever you would joke about a game that was like incredibly super graphically intensive, you would joke, but can it run Crysis? Or rather, what can your PC run Crysis? Things like that. And it's one of those things where, it was kind of born about the fact that Crysis was a pretty intensive game. Not every PC on the planet could run it, but it got a little bit out of control. There's sort of anecdote where Game Informer, the previously defunct game magazine that might be coming back soon, they ran an article at one point where they joked that NASA supercomputers could only run the game on its max settings for 10 minutes before crashing. This would have been circa 2007, 2008. And they got taken completely seriously. People are like, yo, did you hear? NASA supercomputers can't even run this game at max settings. And it's like, no, they totally could. Game Informer was making a goof. But there was like this sort of air of mysticism surrounding Crysis that like people really didn't know what to make of. Years later, this is, I'll try to kind of cut down this quote because it's really long, but Savet Yurli did an interview in 2012 with Eurogamer, in which he talked about the whole "can it run" Crysis of it all. And he was like, basically, there was a bit of a misconception that the game could only run on high spec PC, which was not true. Crysis 1, yes, you had to have a PC that was high end to really maximize it, but we had an intention of design where Crysis would actually be a forward looking game. It was designed to be for you not to be maximizing it out right now. It was always designed to be maximizing up over the next 2 years. And likewise, it was designed to be something that could be scaled down. And so it's one of those things where, yeah, this game was really intensive, but the whole idea that only the select few computers in the entire existence of the Earth could run it was a little overblown. And another thing about this game, I will hand it back to Chad in just a moment because I know he's just so excited to talk about Prophet and Nomad and the wonderful world of Crysis. But this is a game that was pirated quite a bit. You go back into the annals of video game news stories, and there are many stories about how like people just pirated the hell out of this game. Partially because Crysis was a very popular game. A lot of people are like, well, I'm really excited to play this, so I'm going to pirate it because that is the want to be. But also because, honestly, I think there is this component of people hear that Crysis is this game that like most PCs can't play, and they get dejected and are like, well, I don't want to purchase this game only to learn that my PC can't actually run it. If I pirate it, well, then that circumvents the issue if I can't run it. And that eventually factors into some of the decisions that the team will later make when they work on the Crysis sequels, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Chad, back to you.
So thank you for that little history lesson here. So Crysis is a game where you play as a man named Nomad, and you got some little cool exosuits, and you have like a particular energy bar that you then use for a bunch of different functions of your suit to go fight North Korea, because it's North Korea, and that's what we do. So you go fight North Korea, you find out there's some aliens in there, like, oh shit, aliens have been here for 2 million years. What's going on? They're piloting robots and shit now. They're gonna come eat us. And then you proceed to kill a bunch of them. All of them? Question mark? Probably not, because there's a lot of sequels. This game and that concept, and kind of almost like an open zone concept back in 2007, where you could choose how to tackle side objectives and unlock different, like if you did side objectives, it made the main objective easier in different ways. And like that was and different ways of accomplishing the main objective too. You could stealthily do it, you could run in and blast it, you can find secret entrances to places. It got a lot of acclaim. This game actually, the PC version when it came out in 2007, got a 98% on what was it, PC Gamer. It got 9 out of 10s on a bunch of places like Eurogamer, Game Informer. It got 2007 Best Shooter from GameSpot, 2007 Game of the Year from PC Gamer, Game Reactor's 2007 Best Action Game. A lot of praise for this game. And from that, I then want to transition into our experiences with it and how you played it. And Joel, I think I want to start with you because a couple weeks ago, the city of Chicago said it's very important that we come and we cut all of your power and your throats. And
Yeah.
they cut your power only for 10 minutes, and then they left you alive so you could play Crysis. And I'm really curious what your experience was during this traumatic time in your life playing Crysis, on what platform and what version of the game.
All right, so I played Crysis Remastered on my PC, which is like a brand new top of the line PC now. I could only run it for 10 minutes at max settings, and then my computer would crash.
Wow.
No, I'm
Whoa.
just kidding.
And it would take off to the moon because it's NASA.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I played it on PC via Game Pass for free. I guess it's technically not free because it's Game Pass. Yeah, and I don't know, man. This game, it just feels like an old game, like all around. I tried starting playing with mouse and keyboard, and that just felt weird. And then I switched over to controller. It felt even weirder. And then I realized that when you plug in a controller on PC, you then have to go into the settings and enable like what's it called?
Aim assist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that helped a little bit make it feel better, but it just like everything you do in this game feels insanely clunky and like outdated. Like for instance, you can't go from playing like Call of Duty Warzone 2020 or 2025 even and go back to this because it's just like it's night and day. And granted, I understand this game came out in 2007, like it was probably awesome at the time. But even Halo, like Halo 1 coming out in 2000, 2001, like it felt better than this game did in 2007. Like this game, it just feels clunky all around. When you sprint, it doesn't feel like you're sprinting at all. And when you're not
You
sprinting,
sprint for about 10 seconds and then your
Yeah.
computer crashes.
yeah. And when you're not sprinting, you might as well be prone, crawling on the ground because you were barely fucking moving. For a super soldier, come on. What are we doing? It also shows like how unoriginal these games were back then. Because like it feels like every game's like, all right, you're this crazy super soldier. All right, we're gonna put explosions in there. All right, there's gonna be this helicopter looking thing that's gonna look just like a pelican from Halo, but it's not a pelican from Halo. It's gonna come pick you up periodically, and every time it comes to pick you up, oh no, something bad's gonna happen, and you're gonna be stuck on the ground still. It's just like the same shit over and over. The AI is like some of the dumbest AI ever. Like it just spawns out of nowhere sometimes. Like you'll be
Well, they
running
are
and it'll
North
just spawn in
Koreans.
the AI.
No, I'm
I
saying
said
they're
what I
North
said.
Koreans. They're supposed to be stupid. That's a joke
Okay.
about North Koreans.
Wow.
Did you-
That's the
So-
fascist part. That's not the good part. It's fine.
Real,
To be
just
clear,
real
that's
quick.
not
What
Adam's take on like his racist take on North Koreans. That is Adam expressing the views of the game that North Koreans are supposed to be stupid.
back in the day, I got some like insight into our metrics when I was working for Gamers, a YouTube channel. We actually had some people from North Korea that were watching our videos.
Oh, watch out.
I'm curious now what they thought of our Crysis review. Anyways,
Yeah, it just feels outdated. Like some of the visuals, yeah, look amazing. Like when there's a giant explosion that clearly they spent like probably months developing just the explosion. Like for instance, that huge cargo ship or whatever. Not a cargo ship, but that huge ship that blows up during the
The aircraft carrier?
campaign. Yeah, the aircraft carrier. That thing, clearly they took a lot of time to render and make sure the explosion looks super epic. But then there's other stuff, like if you look too closely at like a bush, you're just like, man, this bush is from 2007, and you could tell. Yeah, I don't know. The game overall was fine. I played like 3/4 of the game, I think, last week, and I honestly wasn't gonna go back. But then I was like, "Ah, I have like 2 missions left. I might as well go finish it." So I did finish the campaign. Um, yeah, I don't know. And then the game ends with like the most like, hell yeah, there's gonna be a Crisis 2, no doubt. Like without a doubt, there's a Crisis 2 after seeing the ending of this campaign.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just I back in the day, this is a game that I always saw online, like the cover art, whether I was at a store or, Game Informer, like Cozy was saying, like any website, you would see this thing everywhere. Like it was a test bench for computers for like years and years. So you'd always see like people testing computers running this game. Even still, like Linus Tech Tips videos, they still use this, the remastered version sometimes, just because of the meme of it all, really. And it's something I always wanted to try. Like it looked like it would interest me. And then now that I played, I'm like, man, I am so glad I never paid real money to play this game because I would have been so disappointed. It's a game going into it. I thought for sure I was going to play it and be like, fuck yeah, I can't wait to play Crisis 2 and 3. And now I'm like, man, I really hope we don't have BARF games for Crisis 2 and 3 because like I don't know if I would enjoy
Adam's
those.
choosing next.
Well,
Let's see.
I won't. I'll talk about it later on. I actually think you would be excited if we ended up voting on Crysis 2 or 3, but I'll let Adam talk next.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are much better. Here's the funny thing, Joel. And again, I get this now from reading online and stuff because I also played the quote unquote remastered version of Crysis 1, which everyone agrees is the worst game of the 3 and the remaster. Apparently, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about the Crysis remaster because they remastered the 360 PS3 port. So even though you played it on a beefy computer, you technically were playing a remastered 360 game. So I wonder if the true PC version of Crysis, I don't think it's going to feel any better because it's still a game from 2007. But I
Yeah,
wonder if some
I
of
don't
the
think
visual
I
stuff
don't
is better in that version of it.
I don't think it would look better just because the shaders and stuff back then probably weren't great either. You know what I mean?
Maybe
I will
so.
say,
Well, this new
I
remaster version has ray tracing. A little checkbox for ray tracing you could turn on in the settings.
So I was not aware that the remastered versions of these games were based on the console ports. That's interesting because the console port back in the day of Crysis 1 actually removed a level that was in the PC version. The level in which you're flying the VTOL out of the island was
Oh,
actually
fuck that
removed.
level.
Yeah, I understand why
Yeah.
it's gone because that level sucked.
Yeah, and then they brought
That
it
level
back
was
for
actually-
the remastered.
It was actually missing from the remaster for several months, and then they added it with a patch too.
That
Because they had to
mission,
port that.
it's been a long time since I wanted to throw my controller across the room, and that mission I almost did it because that VTOL was impossible to fly. The controls made no sense. It was like up on the D-pad makes you go up, and I'm hitting it, and my fucking thing's just like spinning
Up
out
on
the
the
ground.
D-pad.
Yeah,
That was R2 on a PS5 controller.
no. For me to go up, it was up on the D-pad, down on the D-pad. It made absolutely zero sense. And so like I'm holding my controller super weird because I'm trying to go up and I'm also trying to fucking shoot these guys and aim and move. It was so annoying. I wanted to throw my controller.
I got stuck in
Sorry,
one of them tornadoes, and you don't get out of that. You just get slowly drawn around the map on that stupid tornado into some trees against the side of a cliff, and then you have to just restart the checkpoint to get yourself out of it.
I do want to talk about like a little bit before that, I think. It's like right when you leave like the alien, when you go in the alien hub and then you come out, right? And they're like, all right, we're gonna come rescue you. You gotta go here. And you go there and they're like, oh no, sorry, too hot. Now you gotta go here. Like that whole shit. And like the one guy's talking to you, he's supposed to be like, some sort of sergeant, like an old white dude. And he's like, all right, you go. There's no room for me. I'm gonna stay here and fight him off. That dude is just wearing a baseball hat that says torpedo on it. And I was like, am I supposed to know what that means? Like, is that like some sort of like tech company in this fucking world I'm supposed to know about? It just says torpedo like it's a college. Like, what the fuck is going on?
So if I recall correctly, Crysis actually takes place in the year 2020. So for all we know, it's a future timeline where a company called Torpedo was invented, and we just don't know about it.
Or these things are COVID.
But it's
Maybe.
like I understand they wanna make this dude, like, stand out and look unique, but, like, you're at war against North Korea and some fucking aliens. Everybody's, like, wearing, like, full army kits. He's wearing a full army kit, but he's not wearing a helmet like everybody else. He's wearing a hat that says a blue hat that says Torpedo in red cursive. How the fuck does that make any sense? Explain it to me.
The Lord,
Adam,
Joel,
do your
the
best to
Lord.
explain it while you also talk about your time with it.
I cannot do much to explain that. Here's the funny thing, though. When Cozy was talking about it earlier, it's like when I was playing this game. Here's the thing. I'm with Joel. I feel there are things about this game that feel very 2007, like the fact that you can't sprint, that you walk super slow. But again, I do think it's very pretty. I like a lot of the tech stuff was cool, like the fact that you can get this open zone idea where I can go get in a Jeep and then like, oh, there's a bunch of guys fighting you at the shack and you just shoot the machine gun and the shacks just disintegrate. It's like, okay, that's cool. That's a fun idea. There's a day night thing. Cool. But the gameplay does feel really old. As I was playing and I was like, man, this reminds me a lot of Far Cry 1. Like I'm on this island, this jungle island thing, and there's like, you interact with the interact. Now that Cozy pointed out, it's like, oh yes, of course these are the same people who made Far Cry 1. They just took the exact same idea and someone gave them more money, and then they made Crysis. Which you can tell. It is funny though because I had not played 1 until this. And yeah, 2 and 3 are so much better. I actually enjoyed 2 and 3. I didn't enjoy this one as much. Again, I appreciate it for what it was doing at the time. It's very much the story is who cares? I mean, it's just fucking Predator. We're going to this place to do a rescue. Shit, there's aliens. Oh, you're all by yourself. Everyone's
Nuke it.
dead. And it's like,
Nuke it.
yeah. And
That's
by the
the
way,
answer, nuke it.
there's also a nuke in fucking Far Cry 1. Just a big heads up. But yeah, the game itself, whatever, it's pretty forgettable. I like 2 and 3 much better, but I can appreciate what this game was doing in 2007. That's cool. Doesn't mean I ever want to play it again. But I'll give them credit where credit is due because yes, it is very pretty, and they were doing some interesting technical things, and the sequels are better.
For reference, we're definitely spoiling the shit out of this 2007 game, right?
Oh,
Like
of
we're not
course.
trying to hide anything.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
only been 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So the fact that the dude's name is Prophet, he goes in, he just reappears out of nowhere, and then he's like, we gotta go fucking end this, and he just goes crazy and leaves. Like the dude being Prophet, the sequels are definitely gonna be he's the bad guy, without a doubt, right? Cozy, you can answer the question. I don't care.
Are we actually? You don't mind if I just spoil the sequels?
The Crysis 2 and 3 are so far down on my priority list of games.
Yeah,
that-
exactly.
I don't even
Yeah,
remember
by the
who
time
was
I
in those
play it,
games. So.
In Crysis 2, initially Prophet goes on a mission to New York, but he gets infected by a disease, and so he puts the
COVID.
cryosuit on this other dude. I mean, it is weird, all the comparisons between this game and COVID. Puts the suit on this other dude, but in the process uploads his like consciousness to the suit, and basically at the end of the game,
Cortana.
the person who's in the suit dies, but then Prophet takes back over. And then Crysis 3, you're just playing as Prophet, but again, the person inside the suit is not Prophet. It's a little complicated, but basically,
The person inside the
Prophet-
suit is dead, and Prophet's AI is just animating a dead body?
yeah, basically, pretty much. It gets a little weird, but in fact, he actually does end up being the hero, not the villain of the story.
hate it.
Answer your question. Okay. In
Well,
summary,
I played this game on PS5 via backwards compatibility for the PS4 version. It's a remaster of the Xbox 360 version, which is a port of the PC version. And I had an okay time with it. I started it. Yeah, that's a lot of different nodes on that journey. I started it thinking, I'll probably end up just playing a couple hours of this thing and watching a video because that's, I guess, my MO now with BARF games, apparently. And I started playing it. I played for like an hour, and then I looked up a walkthrough, like, how far am I into this game? And I was like, oh, I'm actually a pretty significant way
You're
through
a
the
quarter
game.
of the way through the game.
I know, yeah. The whole game took me 6 hours to beat, but that was with like an hour break for dinner and walking the dog and that kind of thing. So I guess like 5 hours total. So yeah, I ended up playing through the whole thing. I liked it the more that I played it. I thought there was some like I really liked the idea that there was one shared energy bar and you got to decide, all right, I'm gonna try to stealth it, and then as soon as I get found, I'll fucking beef up my armor, and then I'll be in armor mode, and maybe I'll sprint away. Like, you have to think about how am I gonna use this one energy bar. I think that was a cool concept that ended up falling flat a little bit because your energy bar is so tiny. Tiny little baby Jesus energy bar. And I was hoping throughout the game, and maybe you do get this with like side quests and stuff, that you could like, I guess this was before things started having RPG elements all the time. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to find whatever upgrade lets me have a larger energy bar or have more efficient usage of that energy or whatever, but that never came. And then I also found that I did technically play this on easy. I forgot that. But regardless, I was like, I never used the armor mode, and I mostly just used the invisible mode to sneak past some people. And most of the time, I didn't even sneak past anyone. I just got in a car and just drove straight through whole towns and straight to the objective. Because yes, you can stop at each of these outposts and shoot a bunch of guys, but as we've already talked about, like the shooting feels terrible in this game.
And there's no incentive to do so. There's no RPG
Exactly.
elements or things to collect, right?
Right. So yeah, I didn't do almost any of I did enough. I did 3 of the side quests, and I only knew that because I got a trophy, and I didn't even realize I did 3 side quests. But yeah, I played through the whole game, had a pretty good time with it. The thing that kept me going through the last few hours was like you finally go into the little alien place. It's like, oh, this is like kind of a cool looking place. I didn't love how much we were in 0G going through this thing with the little Zoras that are just swimming up and attacking you all the time.
Little Zoras.
But yeah. But yeah, I had a pretty good time with it. The only thing that I had to like look up a guide for because I got frustrated as shit is that last boss on the battleship where it's like on the ship with you.
Yes.
And there's no indication that your damage is actually doing anything to it. And then the woman over the comm says, you have to get close enough so that I can infect it with the virus. And so I was just standing right underneath of it, hoping that eventually she'd be like, cool, I did the virus thing. Now you can kill it. But that never came. And then finally I just like, all right, let it kill me. And I'll look up a guide and find out, oh shit, no, you're actually just supposed to keep shooting it over and over and over till it's dead.
Yeah,
aside from that, it was fine.
I was gonna bring that up too because I shot at that thing for what felt like 20 minutes and it wasn't doing anything. And then I was like, fuck this. I paused it, I Googled it, and people were like, yeah, this fight is super broken on the remaster version and they haven't fixed it yet. Because apparently that is glitched for some people to where it just never advances. You could use all the ammo on that ship and it just won't advance. And I was like, oh no. Is this how my experience with this game ends? Is where I just can't kill this thing? Yeah. And then eventually I found a video on YouTube where some guy's like, here's what I did to get past this because I was having this issue. And it was like, I just followed everything he did. He's like, I went over here, grabbed this Gauss thing, shot all the bullets in this area, ran over here, grabbed this rocket launcher, shot all these bullets. And so I just followed everything he did, and finally it worked. So annoying.
Oh, man.
Cozy, tell me, how on earth did you get through the super hard mode on this to get that platinum trophy? Like, why did you do that to yourself?
Yeah, so we've definitely had a range of opinions on this episode. Joel, pretty low on the game. Adam, low-ish. Chad, you've been kind of high, and I'm definitely the highest on this game, but this isn't necessarily a game that I absolutely love. This is a game, much like Zelda 2 from many BARF reviews ago, that is very flawed, but that I feel like I've come to appreciate more and more with each subsequent playthrough. This is a game I did not actually initially love during my initial playthrough of it back in the day when I was writing the gamer's script. And it's one of those things where like I had to try really hard when writing the script to like not let my dislike of the game kind of fall through and kind of just, talk about it as objectively as I possibly could. Playing through it multiple times as part of this BARF review, though, has definitely allowed me to kind of appreciate some of the things that it does a lot more. I think there are a lot of things that we can talk about in terms of the ways in which this game is flawed, the ways in which this game doesn't live up to expectations. I would make the argument that the single biggest issue with Crysis 1 is that what Crysis 1 was advertised as being versus what it actually is are very different things. What it was advertised as being, looking at it from the outside, is Call of Duty meets Iron Man. You get in a cool iron suit or whatever suit is made on the franchise, and you just fuck shit up. And you are just dominating on the battlefield, going into stealth mode, just being able to be impervious to all attacks with armor mode. This is how the game was advertised in a lot of its early trailers and such. And in reality, Crisis 1 is more like driving a car. It's more like playing Arma with sci-fi elements. It is much more of a nitty-gritty shooter where you have this incredibly small um, vitality bar that gives you a very, very limited range of options of what you can do at any given point until you run out of energy. And you really have to treat controlling the suit again like a really complex piece of machinery, like a car, than you can like an Iron Man suit that is all powerful and that can just fuck up whatever is in its path. And so, yeah, this is a game that like I think has many moments while playing through it where I'm like, man, I really appreciate the huge degree of freedom that this game allows me in terms of how it allows me to kind of tackle its various levels. You know, something that I feel like we still don't necessarily get a lot of in a lot of first person shooters, both then and now. Like the sheer scope of a lot of the levels, I think is really impressive. The tank level halfway through the game where you're driving down the valley as the mountain in the distance is getting gradually destroyed, I think is really impressive, even if it doesn't necessarily look as impressive as some of the games that we're used to nowadays. The stealth is, you know, tough but fair. I think it's very satisfying to successfully pull off sneaking around people. And I will say, like, well, I don't disagree with you, Chad, that I did find myself missing some of those RPG elements and the option to find collectibles and things of that nature. I did kind of appreciate that I also didn't have to worry about that stuff. So many modern first person shooters nowadays are like, you got to find all the dog ties, you got to find all the newspaper clippings and all that stuff. And I appreciated that this game was really kind of focused in that regard. But then you have the issues. You have things like armor mode in the game being basically next to useless. Like you activate armor mode and it's like you get maybe an extra second of enemies shooting at you before you're dead. And it's like, well, why even have this in the game? You gotta what they really should have done is they should have made it so that you transform into a turtle. You're impervious to all damage, but you also can't fight anything in exchange to make it more balanced. And as we've talked about a lot, the second half of the game is really, really weak. The first half of the game, you have a lot of big open-ended level that you can complete in a variety of methods. Second half of the game, very linear, lots of snow everywhere. You're fighting those annoying, shitty aliens that are just not fun to fight, even though you do have a little bit of auto-targeting help. It's not very good, and the final boss is a mess, as Joel talked about. Um, and so, yeah, it's a game that I feel very mixed about, despite really enjoying it in parts to the point that after I completed it my second go around as part of my BARF playthrough of it, I was like, you know what? I still have a fair few, not a fair few, but like only a few trophies left to go for. Let's just go ahead and get that platinum. I will say some pretty challenging things on the platinum run that I had to take care of, but thanks to the very like open-ended nature of how this game functions, there are a lot of objectives where after knowing exactly where it is that I need to go and what it is that I would need to do, I was able to kind of complete very quickly. So to answer your question, Chad, how did I complete this game on super ultra hard difficulty? After playing through this game multiple times, I basically had a pretty good memorization in my brain of like, all right, I just need to do exactly these objectives and I can complete level X. And that's how I got through it.
I just remembered. How did you all actually find whatever way in the game you're supposed to deal with landmines?
I just
Because
avoided them.
I avoided them, like, oh, landmines there, cool. I'm not going to go that way. And then there's the one level where you're trying to get to the mines, and you have to.
Mhm.
There's like an impassable. Well, I couldn't find another way around it. There's a spot where like you had to go through the landmines, and I was sitting there shooting these things one at a time, trying to get them all to blow up. And then you walk over and it's like it felt like it doesn't matter because there's just no matter what's actually visible there, there's just a ton of invisible ones that are like, if you walk on this, you're dead anyway. And I couldn't find anything online about how to get past them. Nobody was struggling like I was. And then finally, after like 30 minutes of trying it, I was like, I'm just gonna fucking run. And it turns out you run and you're totally fine if you go over all of them. But I didn't know if there was another way you're supposed to get over landmines that somebody found.
I don't. There were definitely some incidents where I had to deal with some landmines. I don't remember there being like an impassable path, but I'm sure that if you were to show me that area, it'd be like, oh yeah, that was tough. But
I think
yeah,
it was
don't
at the
really
end
know.
of the tank level.
The end of the Oh, I know what you're talking about. For that one, I just walked in a straight path and none of them blew up. But I agree that it's not very well marked. It's not very well marked where you're supposed to walk.
Damn. Well, that's Crysis, everyone. Crysis Remastered. Thank you. No, thank you for making us play it. Whatever it might be. Adam,
Do
you are
we-
next up for April.
Sorry, I
Yes.
just want to say,
Cozy, what were you going to say? Yeah, go for it.
do we want to quickly just go through Warhead and the Crysis sequels? Just real quick, because who knows, maybe we'll cover them someday, but I do want to just lay down a couple
I would probably
of facts.
say Warhead, since that's like the
Okay.
expansion, right?
Sure.
But
So
then it
let's
sounds
talk.
like there like 2 and 3 might be worth playing. So maybe we hold off on those.
Right. So what I'll say, like, very quickly about Crysis 2 and Crysis 3, just to get Joel's spirits up a little bit. Crysis 2 and Crysis 3, they moved to launching the series day and date on both PC and consoles. Crysis 1, this big PC exclusive release at launch. Crysis 2 and 3, they're like, we're putting it out on both PC and consoles because back in the day, there were a lot of people that were talking to Crytek and being like, hey, you guys really should get on consoles. I really wanted to play this game, but I just didn't have the PC that could run it. There was also the piracy issue where they were like, we need to put this game on more platforms so that we're not exclusively putting it on a singular platform where it's getting pirated. And one of the both downsides, but also upsides to Crysis moving to consoles is that they didn't have the sheer computation power that they had on PC to make the games as open-ended as they were there, which meant that the games became a lot more linear. But Crytek's like sheer level design, like acumen, really improved. And so while Crysis 2 and 3 are not nearly as open-ended as Crysis 1, they're also just better designed and much more enjoyable games. And so I'm going to say this right here and right now. I'm not saying we have to put Crysis 2 or 3 on our BARF hole for next month, but it would be fun to kind of like catch up with the series at some point in the future and try them out then and there. Real quick, going to Crysis Warhead. So Crysis Warhead was developed by Crytek Budapest, which is one of Crytek's satellite studios, released in 2008. So there's Psycho, who's one of the members of your super duper nanosuit squad, that halfway through the game,
Oh, really?
just when you're about to, if you remember, just when you're about to attempt the tank level, they tell Psycho, hey, Psycho, we need you to go and take care of this other objective on the other side of the island. Basically, the expansion basically tells what Psycho was doing during his section of the game before he reunites with you at the very end on the warship. My memory of Warhead, because it's been a while since I last played it, didn't replay it for this review. It's more improved over the OG Crysis, but it's still kind of janky. There's one really good sequence in Crysis Warhead where Psycho has to basically catch a train and then fight a bunch of enemies on the train. And I like it a lot because, like, there are a lot of train sequences in games we've played. I think about things like the train sequence in Gears of War 1 or in Uncharted 2, for example. And those are fun, but they tend to be, very linear. Exactly how you're going to play through those sequences is paced on like a moment to moment basis. And in Warhead, you can like get to the train exactly on time. You can be slightly delayed for it. You can arrive early and kind of wait in ambush. When the train departs, you can like follow it on foot. You can like get in like another vehicle, like another car, and follow it alongside it. You can immediately get on the train. As much as I found the experience overall to be kind of jank, I really liked that particular sequence. And it made me think about how we could get more games that are like that. And that's Crysis Warhead.
Dope. Adam, you're gonna have a list
Chad?
up this week, maybe? Do you
Yeah,
have
I can do
any
mine in the week.
ideas you could tease the audience with of what our BARF game might be, or just TBD?
It'll be a surprise.
Oh, can't wait to see how you tie this into April. Is it Easter related? Does it have to do with the rise of Christ?
Is it
Or
Switch 2
bunnies.
related?
Is it Switch 2 related? Do we have to play it on Switch 2? Do we have to go steal dev
It won't be
units?
out yet, Joel.
Does
I'm saying
involve
it could be a Switch 1
Tools.
game.
Oh,
be a
yeah,
Switch
you
1
guys can
game.
play
Yeah.
Switch game. Absolutely. That's
All right, folks. So that's it. That's our BARF episode for the month of March. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As we mentioned, no regular episode this week. So for now, go become a patron and listen to last month's / this month's After Dark, and eagerly await After Dark 3, filming now at a select location near you. Toodles!
Goodbye.